The 1950s, a decade often remembered in black and white photos, shining chrome cars, and families smiling proudly in front of their new suburban homes. But behind those perfect pictures was a decade that transformed America forever. Daily life changed, culture shifted, and the world stepped into a new era that still shapes us today. When soldiers returned from World War II, they came home with one desire: stability. That dream took shape in a new place. Freshly built suburbs like Levittown. Streets stretched with identical houses, neatly cut lawns, and the quiet promise of safety. Families packed their belongings, left crowded cities, and moved into these neighborhoods, believing they had finally found the American dream. A typical day looked simple: fathers commuting to work, mothers managing the home, and children playing freely outside until the streetlights glowed. But beneath the calm image, the suburbs were not open to everyone. Strict housing rules kept minorities out, leaving a dream celebrated by some, but denied to many. At the same time, America fell in love with cars like never before. The 1950s created a full-blown car culture: bright colors, big fins, polished chrome. Having a car meant freedom. Highways expanded across the country, diners popped up by the roadside, and families began taking weekend trips just for the joy of driving. Teenagers made the car their territory, cruising through town, parking at drive-in theaters, and listening to music while the summer breeze blew through open windows. A car wasn't just transportation, it was identity. But nothing changed daily life more than television. In 1950, only a small number of homes had a TV. By the end of the decade, nearly every living room in America glowed at night. Families gathered after dinner to watch I Love Lucy, The Lone Ranger, and The Ed Sullivan Show. TV didn't just entertain. It shaped how people talked, dressed, and acted. For the first time in history, the entire country shared the same shows, laughed at the same jokes, and watched the same stars rise to fame. Teenagers, however, became the real force of the decade. The 1950s created something the world had never seen before: a true teenage culture. With extra spending money and more freedom, young people formed their own trends. Diners filled with jukebox music, milkshakes, and groups of teens wearing poodle skirts, leather jackets, and bright colors. And then rock and roll crashed onto the scene. Elvis Presley took over television screens with a sound and style adults called too wild, but teenagers felt alive. His music broke rules, challenged traditions, and started a cultural revolution that would only grow larger in the decades to come. But the decade wasn't all shine and excitement. Beneath the surface was fear, real fear. The Cold War made Americans nervous about the future. Schools practiced duck and cover drills. Families built bomb shelters. Accusations of communism spread across workplaces, leaving many cautious about what they said or who they associated with. And while suburban families enjoyed comfort, millions of African Americans lived under segregation and discrimination. Yet in this same decade, the early sparks of the civil rights movement began to grow. The fight for equality was coming, even if the country wasn't ready. Still, the 1950s left a powerful mark. From the suburbs that shaped family life, to the cars that defined freedom, to the television that united the nation, to the music that sparked rebellion, the decade created the blueprint for modern America. Much of what we see today in fashion, entertainment, consumer culture, and youth identity began in those years. It wasn't just a peaceful era frozen in black and white photographs. It was the birth of a new world. The 1950s didn't just change America, they changed everything. What do you think life in the 1950s truly felt like? Let me know in the comments, and like, comment, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this, The Driven Tales.